It is the Line Change episode number 4, the Line Change podcast. You can find wherever you get your podcasts, also on the iHeartRadio app, all part of Fox Sports The Gambler. My name is John Jansen. You can follow me at jjansen34 on Twitter and most social platforms. And joining me, I don't think I've ever had him as a guest on my show. I know he's been on Sean's show, which I've been on, and he's been a guest on, and I see him all around. He's in the same sort of gambling space circles that I am in, and always love interacting with this guy. It is Jovan Alford, and you can follow him. This is a bad job by me. You should have your Twitter account up. It's just at Jovan10, Jovan 10. That was easy. I knew that. Yep. I don't know why I second-guessed myself. But Jovan, thanks for coming on the pod. And I know we were talking a little bit before I hit the record button. You got Ryan Howard in your background, and I just got to say, you and I both were Ryan Howard fans. That's my favorite athlete of all time, bar none. Favorite athlete.
Yeah, man, for sure. Glad to be on the pod for first time. Like you said, obviously outside of being on the radio when you was on there. I think we were talking like NBA props. I remember that.
That's right. No NBA props now.
No NBA props now.
No Jonte Porter props. We don't need any of that.
No, not at all. But no, I'm glad. I'm glad to be on the pod talking to you today, man. Breaking down some baseball, like you said, Ryan Howard. One of my favorite players. And like we talked about before the show, that run from like 2006 to like 2010, where he was just like hitting 58 home runs, like
it's amazing.
You just knew every time he comes to the plate, you're like, all right, this is gonna be a home run. Like,
and his rookie year was, I think it was 2005 when he won Rookie of the Year. He was awesome, and he just burst onto the scene. It was like, who is this guy hitting massive tank job home runs? And he was able to do it the next season. I always said, now I think it could be disputed a little bit with Aaron Judge, but I always said that was the purest. His home run season in 2006 when he won the MVP, the purest home run season in the modern era, because there was no steroids, there were no juiced baseballs. Yep. It was just him mashing regular, normal baseballs 50, 100 feet in the air, and he hit 50-something of them. But Aaron Judge, I don't think he had too many juiced baseballs, even though you could maybe dispute that. I think that's now maybe the more modern home run season. But yeah, Howard had 56, no steroids, no juiced baseballs. This guy was clean. Baseballs were clean, and it was great. Also, in 2005, I think I can say I had the first Ryan Howard jersey of all time. I had the first one. I think so, because I saw him in AAA, and everybody was kind of anticipating this guy coming up. And I was like, this is my favorite player. I saw him hit a it was a double in the left center gap. And I said, this guy's my favorite player ever, already there. And so he was maybe 2 weeks into his Phillies career in the MLB. And I went to a game, and I had my parents get, you can get a customized jersey.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I got the Howard one, Howard 6. I got it customized. And I got so many compliments as a kid on that jersey, because there were not many out there. And I had one.
Did
you ever have a Howard jersey? You had that?
No, I didn't have a Howard jersey. I think I have a Ryan Howard bobblehead. I do have that.
Oh, nice. Is it the batting stance?
Yeah, it's the batting stance. I used that when I was younger. I used that for good luck. Every time he's come to bat, I used to tap it a couple times, just like, all right, let's go ahead and home run.
I don't know if you played baseball as a kid, because that was my stance I emulated. Everybody had, Ken Griffey Jr., so many stances, Sammy Sosa or Gary Sheffield. Mine was always, I love doing the Howard. I love putting my left hand, his right hand, my left hand extended with the bat up in the air. I always did the Ryan Howard stance. That was mine.
I tried to do that when I played softball a couple years ago.
Nice.
in the dark rec leagues. Yeah, but obviously I do not have the same power that
not hitting tank jobs in softball.
No, I'm just trying to get on base.
You would think that using that stance would help you out. I thought that's why he was hitting home runs. But no, I could go on about Ryan Howard all day. I think the end of his career, everybody got a bad taste in the mouth of Howard, but I think he's celebrated more now than he was even back then. So, which is very good. All right, Jovan, I do want to get into some baseball. I do want to talk mostly Phillies with you to start, because I had mid-major Matt on in the last pod. We were talking about college basketball, but ultimately it landed on the Phillies as well. And we both shared a sentiment of, I am high on the Phillies. I still think if you were to make me rank the National League teams, I think they fall third. And I think they're a very clear third. Then behind them is Arizona. But there are some things to be worried about to me. Like, I'm worried about Kyle Schwarber now a few years into his Philly tenure. I'm worried about JT Realmuto, Nick Castellanos in a few years in their Phillies tenure, and what that's going to look like, especially JT as a 30-something-year-old catcher.
Yeah.
There's some things to be worried about. Overall, though, how are you feeling about the Phillies heading into the season? Is there a little bit of doubt? Is there a little bit of a concern? Or is it, hey, these guys have done it now the last 2 years. Who's to say they can't do it again to make these deep runs?
Yeah, no, I feel okay about this team. I feel really good. I know social media is a different thing because everybody, they're undecided about, Rojas, don't know if they want him as the starting center fielder, they're worried about the starting rotation, everybody, wanted them to get either Snell or Montgomery, even though not every team can have like a God squad, and get starting
That's what I want.
rotation.
I want a God squad. Give me
Right.
Montgomery as the fourth behind Ranger Suarez, and give me a Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, and Montgomery, and then hey, Taiwan Walker is a 5. That's great. But yeah, I
Hey,
know you're right. That seems like more of a luxury than something that
yeah,
seems
it's almost
necessary.
it's almost like what the Dodgers have, right? Dodgers-esque.
Right.
If Otani was healthy, so you're rolling out Otani, Glass now, Yamamoto, even though he had a bad first start, but you're rolling out those type of arms, so you want to have that type of luxury. But no, I feel solid with him. I mean, the way last season ended was, rough. You didn't foresee that just because the way they were rolling, and then the offense just went dead at the worst part of the time, and it wasn't because of your guys, which I think that was the biggest thing even last season. Like, was the bottom of your order going to produce? And we saw in the playoffs, like from Stott down, like those guys like got on base, it got to happen. It was the guys at the top, like you mentioned, right? Those guys at the top that didn't kind of bring it through. So you hope that this year, like now they have 2 postseasons under their belt, so they know what to expect. They know how to get there. I think they'll be fine. I mean, I think the bullpen's not as the biggest concern. I think, as it was in years past where you're like, oh my God, like who do we
Yeah.
have coming out
It's
there?
kind of
Like,
weird because now there's actually expectations of the bullpen. I think somebody ranked them, MLB Network or maybe
yeah,
something like
MLB
that,
ranked
ranked
them
them
number
number
one.
1. Yeah, I saw that. It's a weird feeling to see that with the Phillies coming into the year. Very weird.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about Craig Kimball at the ninth inning and trying to
Good
worry
luck,
about is he
Baltimore.
gonna
Good
yeah.
luck.
I mean, hey,
I don't know. That
Craig,
changeup looked pretty good though. That new
it did.
changeup, yeah.
That was a nasty changeup, but I don't know if
Yeah.
he's gonna be able to do that against Aaron Judge in Yankee Stadium in the ninth inning. I don't know.
Fair enough. You know what? That is a fair assessment, I think, on that one. Who's a player you're most excited about seeing with the Phillies this year?
Player most excited about seeing? That's a good question. I always lean towards Zach Wheeler because I feel like he doesn't get his just due in terms of being one of the better pitchers in the league. Like, I just feel like everybody remembers, his Mets tenure, which was kind of up and down. He dealt with the injuries, but he's kind of been on like this consistent ascension ever since he got to the Phillies, where it's like, yo, like this dude is like really good. Like he's Cy Young good, and he's like getting better and better. Like, pitchers, they probably start better when they're younger, but he's kind of like the inverse, where it's like he's getting better as he's getting older.
Yeah,
He's
aging
starting
very well. Very
aging
well.
very well. And, just seeing, I think, for me, not only what he's done in the regular season, but in the postseason, the dude is like a totally different pitcher. Like he goes in there like lights out, hey, if you need me to come in relief in a game 6-7 situation, like I'm coming in there throwing 96, 98. So it's like this
And
guy's the
painting the
real
corners while doing it too.
right,
That's crazy.
which is just ridiculous because he just threw like 7 innings the couple nights prior. So I'm definitely excited, to see what he can do. And I'm also excited to see what Christian Pache can do. He had a very good spring, and I think a lot of people last year were kind of like, all right, what is this guy going to do? He was former top prospect, didn't really do much with the A's. Like, what can the Phillies get out of him? And it seems like they have this knack for like taking other teams like former top prospects and him and Marsh and kind of turning them into, very solid, Major League Baseball players. So definitely excited to see what those two can do.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Phillies are kind of doing the things that remind me what San Francisco does. Because San Francisco was
Mm-hmm.
the one that took a guy like Darren Ruff and found a way
Right.
to utilize him. Found a way, even if it was only just against, I think it was against left-handed pitching that he was really good
Mm-hmm.
against. He went over to the Mets, and after that, and the Mets made him a 400, I think, OPS hitter. Like he was terrible. So I think it's just they have understood best use cases for these guys, and I think it's
Yep.
really worked out for them, and really worked out for somebody like Christian Pache. And then once the confidence, I think, gets going, some of the other areas he'll be fine in. Because I know one of them is right-handed pitching, and Jake Cave didn't do well against right-handed pitching. Pache didn't. And it's trying to find that. But I think it's trusting him that his bat is getting better. The confidence is getting better. But that also with Pache, He seems to be a solid fallback plan just in case the Johan Rojas thing doesn't work out. I actually think, I don't know. I think the guy's bat is fine. It's just a shame that I think he started to run into that rookie wall as the playoffs hit. And that is a brutal time for that to happen, where you're facing the most quality pitchers in the toughest at-bats of your entire career, in the at-bats with the most stakes that you had in your entire career, and then you also have to figure out what's going wrong with your swing. That's a ton to figure out. I think with a full season, there's going to be bumps in the road, and again, I think that's really good to have a fallback plan with Pache. But I think there is something there with Rojas bat. I do think there's a little bit of power there. It looks like he got a little bit of power in the offseason. Your outlook on Rojas coming in, because it just seems like people, I hate to say, are doubting him, but just are trying to say, look, try and get him in the minor leagues, fine tune him a little bit more. I think the guy's ready, though. I think he is ready for the major leagues.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's why I thought it was funny when fans were like, yo, man, they got to go out and get Cody Bellinger, throw him in center field. Again, like, having a God squad is, tremendous. Like, if we could take
I'm not even the biggest Cody Bellinger fan. I think that was really fluky what he did last year.
Very fluky, right? Because he hasn't been outside of last season, hasn't been that same guy from his rookie year. So
not even close to it.
I understand the idea of him, but it's like, when was the last time the Phillies actually brought up a young guy that was 22, 23 and said, hey, like, we're going to go let you do your thing and figure it out? Like, we're starting to see this trend with him, right? Ever since, new management got in, like, they let Alec Bohm, don't be in the minor so long. Like, you're coming up. Bryson Stott, you're coming up. Like, Rojas, you didn't have AAA.
And they let him, and the thing is that too, they let him work through sort of their things. Alec Bohm had to work through a lot of stuff. Even Bryson Stott,
especially defensively, for Bohm, and even hitting for Stott. Even coming into last season, like, there was some holes in his swing, but as we saw last season, he figured them out. So then pitchers couldn't attack him the same way as they did the year prior. So I'm very high on him, like you said, and he's going to be your number 9 hitter. So you're not looking for him to hit 20 bombs and have 60 RBIs. Like, I'm just looking for him to get on base because he has that speed. Like, I want him to be almost like, and I know this is a bad comparison, almost like Estoy Ruiz out in Oakland. Like, I just want a guy that's going to get on base and just wreak havoc. Like, there's no reason why Johan Rojas in the full season can't have 30 stolen bases if he gets that opportunity.
Yeah, I think he should. And I think he will get on base, steal some bases. And again, I think there is a little, not to say he's going to be a 30 home run hitter, but I do think there's a little bit of power behind that bat, especially with his speed. You get doubles power. I think he has that in him. I think he really does. So you talked about league wide. I do think Zach Wheeler can be kind of underappreciated. I think here locally in Philly, Aaron Nola gets a bit underappreciated. Look, not the greatest year last year. Came on very strong at the end, came on very strong in the playoffs. I am one of my bold predictions, I guess, coming into the year with the Phillies is I think Aaron Nola is going to be the higher Cy Young candidate than Zach Wheeler this season. I think Nola can be a top 3. Your thoughts on Nola? I know he's a little inconsistent. I know year to year it can be very different, but I think we're poised for one of maybe his better years in a Phillies uniform.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think we're going to see a bounce back here because, like you said, granted, he had the up and downs where it seemed like last year, it seemed like he was giving up a home run. Like, for every start, it's like, oh, my God, here comes the Aaron Nola home run in the 5th or 6th inning tie game. But then we saw him figure out against that, one of the second to last starts against Atlanta in Atlanta, where he figured it out and was like, okay, like, I think he's got it back. And I think that's the thing with Nola. He's not a guy that's going to wow you, obviously, with the 96, 98. For him, it's just, can he get that off-speed pitch established? He gets that established, he's lights out, and he's a guy that you can count on. Like, we see a lot of pitchers in the game, that can't finish seasons, to get hurt, things like that. Like, this is a guy that's been consistent. Like, you haven't had to worry about him getting hurt. You haven't been able to worry about him, going long in games. Like, he'll go 9 innings if you allow him to. So I'm excited to see him. I'm glad that they were able to, re-sign him to that deal because he's been, outside of Cole Hamels, he's been one of your best pitching prospects, to come out of the system in a while. And you got to reward that, right? For a guy that's constantly doing it. And then, like you mentioned, he's been lights out in the playoffs. Like, he just knows, like, it's playoff time. Like, and those are the pitchers you want. Like, I don't want to say I don't care what you do in like April and March and May because that counts for something. But when we get to September and October, if I know that I can count on you, those 2 guys to give me 6, 7 innings, it makes the ball game so much easier for the rest of the team.
Yeah, it does. And I think Nolan in the playoffs, it's always fun to see his fastball. And it's only for him. He needs a couple ticks up. I think he'll be like 91, 92 during the regular season. Then he'll get the 93, 94 during the postseason. And with his breaking stuff, with that extra couple mile an hour on his fastball, I think makes the world of difference for him. So I love the talent. I think, look, he's a workhorse. He's going to have a better year. He's going to be more consistent this year. Again, I think he is going to be Cy Young material this season. He has been Cy Young material before. I love Nola coming into this year. And it's, again, it turns into one of the best 1-2 punches in all of baseball between with Wheeler and Nola. It's one of the best, and it's the reason why you can beat the Braves in a 5-game series in the postseason with those two guys. Speaking of the Braves, though, and that's this question has come up more often. I know JT Realmuto has talked about this, but it's the Braves. The Braves thing kind of hangs over the Phillies a lot because they can beat her in the postseason. It's great. But the Phillies, I think they want more than just, hey, let's not just sneak into the postseason in a wild card spot and, have to play the 3 games and get in. I think they really want to compete for this division. Can they? Do they have the starting pitching depth to do it? Do they have, I guess, the bullpen, maybe the lineup depth to do it? Do they have the depth necessary? And at least to me, it comes down to starting rotation depth to be able to keep up with what is going to be one of the most consistent, best teams in the Braves this season.
Yeah, I think offensively, I think they can match them, right? Like if JT Realmuto doesn't have a down year, like and Castellanos' swing is intact.
Yeah, and we're poised for a big Trey year. Poised for a huge
right.
Trey year.
And I think Trey will almost be like how Castellanos was this past year, like second year, kind of figured out, kind of more comfortable, and things start to happen. I think that's the same way for Turner. And like I said, offensively, they can mash with them. Like I don't think nobody will disagree with that. But like you said, rotation is tough, right? You're talking Wheeler, and we'll see this right in opening week, which is great, right? You're going to have Wheeler versus Strider. That's almost like a pick 'em. I know Strider is the better pitcher at the moment, just those absolute heat. But again,
you're right. I think you're right.
It's a pick 'em, and then you got Nola Freed, another great matchup. Then this where it gets a little tricky, right? Do you like Suarez over Chris Sale? Well, we know Chris Sale is good, but can Chris Sale be that Chris Sale that we saw, in the early part of career in Boston, where he was, the all-star, the all-star guy on the mound? And then 4 or 5, that's toss-up. But it really focuses on those top 3 guys, and I think they can match them because Ranger, again, he's not a guy like Wheeler. He's not a guy like Nola, which I think helps the Phillies, right? Because if you're going against them, you're seeing a lot of guys that can get strikeouts and that can, throw heat and do those things. Suarez is not the type of guy, but Suarez can make life tough on you, for 5-6 innings by painting those corners and throwing those off-speed stuff from the left side, which can make life hard for guys, like a Matt Olson, like an Albies. So it's a wash offensively. I think pitching they can match with them. It's just going to be, and I think we saw this a little bit last year. I don't think the discrepancy was that big of a difference when you look at the record of like head-to-head matchup. Like the Phillies actually got there and caught up to there, and that's going to be the key. The Phillies have to, if they want to win the division, having a good start in March and April is going to be so paramount because the Braves, as we've seen for the last few years, they get out to a big start in April and then you're playing behind the 8 ball the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think strong start really the last 2 years has been tough for the Phillies. And if they can do that this year, I think they can compete. It's going to be tough. Again, starting rotation depth is where I have the problem. I don't know if it's going to be able to hold up for 162. But again, that doesn't come into play when it comes to the postseason because they've been playing the Braves in a series of 5. In a series of 5, the Phillies have the 1-2 punch to do it. But speaking of the Braves, I've been kind of thinking this too because it's very clearly 2 teams at the top of the National League, but I think people are kind of getting this one wrong. Who's the best team in the National League, the Dodgers or the Braves?
Ooh, Dodgers or the Braves?
Because I think it's not the team that's favored in the Dodgers. I
don't think so either. And what concerns me about the Dodgers, like I know they have the offense, but I think it's the same thing we just talked about, right? It's the pitching. I don't know if I can trust their pitching. Like you're putting a lot of pressure on a rookie Yamamoto, who we know did it tremendously over there, in Japan, was a monster, but he's going to take time to get adjusted. Like this is going to be a huge adjustment for him. That's a lot of pressure. You don't have Shohei in the rotation. You're going to hope for Walker Buehler to come back from injury. You're hoping for Kershaw. Glass now, is good, but can you depend on him long? Like you said for the Phillies, right? That 162. Can you depend on Glass now for that 162? And then you're dependent on, you're dependent on young kids. You're hoping that you get something from Gavin Stone, right? He had a very good spring training, but now can he replicate that into the regular season? And Bobby Miller, who a lot of people, had poached, to win probably Rookie of the Year, he's got the stuff, but now teams seeing him this year too, can he replicate it? So Dodgers is going to probably be one of those teams where almost like how we saw the second game of that Soul series, where it's going to be like 11-10, 9-10 until they can like get into that groove and figure out rotation wise. So I got to give the edge to the Braves because, like you said, the pitching is
it's
just
too
elite.
good. The pitching depth is great. That they can go maybe 7 deep in their starting rotation. That's crazy. Yeah, it's terrifying. And look, once you get to the 5, 6, 7, not all those guys are amazing, but they're such quality arms. And the Braves are going to make some trade in the at the deadline.
Always.
That's going to be such an underrated trade that everybody's just going to go, okay, well, they got a nobody, and that nobody turns out to be such a key piece, an X factor in their playoff run. The Braves are terrifying. But those are the top teams in the National League. I'll ask these for both leagues, and since we're in the National League, I'll start with the National League. Surprise team in the National League. I know for me, I like the Reds a lot. I love the Reds. But is there a surprise team, a team you think that maybe could make a run here in the same vein that the Phillies did a couple of years ago, the same way Texas did last year? Any surprise team in the National League for you this year?
Surprise team in National League. Let me see. There ain't that many. That's how top heavy
I know that's
right
the problem. That's why I land on Cincinnati because I
top
think the
heavy, and then
great.
it's like top, and then it's just bottom. Like there's no in between. I would say the Cubs, but I feel like they're the favorite to win the Central because the Central is just so bad this year. Like
you can still say the Cubs though. In terms, because this is more of contending, not just for division, but contending to make that surprise run, like previous years.
I think the Cubs could, but for them, it's going to be, can they prove that a lot of things that happened last year weren't a fluke, right? Can Justin still replicate what he did now? And now you don't have Stroman at the number 2 spot. Can their offseason additions of Imagna can slide in? Can they get, I think they got a couple of young guys at the back of their rotation that they're going to depend on. Can Christopher Morel continue to take that next step?
I hope so. I drafted him in fantasy baseball. I love him, but yeah, I don't know what that's going to be like.
And Bellinger, like we talked about, like was that second half fluke where he was just hitting home runs and doubles and just hitting 300? Was that a mirage, or was that a thing to come? So the Cubs are the team that I have my eye on, in that Central. Along, like you said, with the Reds, I think I was just telling my friend who's a Pirates fan, I said the Reds are like the perfect young team that they have everything on paper. You just want them to put it together. Like if there's a time to put it together, like this is the year to put it together, because all the talent that you waited for those couple of years are now in the majors, and now it's time to kind of put that together and start winning.
Yeah, one team I'm just kind of I'm still trying to figure out, because last year was supposed to be the year for them. It didn't really happen. Now this year they lose Juan Soto. We kind of don't know where the Padres are. Like, what are the Padres? Still some talent there. And man, we saw them mash Yamamoto, and Yamamoto is going to go through his struggles coming over from Japan. It happens to every Japanese pitcher, every, I think, foreign player, has to adjust to the major leagues, adjust to how major league hitters do, major league pitchers, all of that. But the Padres still mashed for 15 runs, and they took the game from the Dodgers. How are you feeling about them? Is this a team that could make some noise, or did they lose too much in the offseason and kind of that window has sort of closed on them?
They got the pitching, right? They got those 3 frontline starters that we talked about, right? You get Dylan Cease. You only got to give up prospects for it. Obviously, you're telling your fan base we're going all in. We don't care about the future. The future is not now. Yeah. The future is now. It's the present. We're not doing that no more. So I think having Cease, Musgrove, and Darvish is a great 1, 2, 3. My concern with the Padres is just offensive consistency. Can you guys not strike out a ton? Can you not go through these long scoring droughts? And not having Soto, I think, will hurt them, because that's another power bat that you would love to have that kind of help them. But hey, now you're getting a full year of Fernando Tatis. Your Manny Machado looked pretty well in that series. So if those 2 guys can carry you, like I think everybody's expecting them to, then I think they'll be there. And the question is just offensively, can they not have those slumps because they don't have as much power hitters as the top teams do? Like we mentioned, the Braves, the Phillies, the Dodgers, like guys that can just mash. Even though, like we said, the Padres, they did it, in South Korea. But can they do it consistently? And can the guys like the Cronenworths and the Kims, can they get on base and kind of wreak havoc? Because that's going to be the key for them. Like your pitching is going to hold up. It's just going to be, can you at least score 4 or 5 runs to get to the finish line and get the win?
Now over to the American League. I asked about surprise team for the National League. Last year, the surprise team was Texas. Texas went all the way to the World Series. They ended up winning the World Series. And nobody thought, even though they got DeGrom, but DeGrom then got hurt, everybody thought, okay, well, that's what they spent on. There's no way they're going to make the playoffs now. But they get into the playoffs, and like they did, like for the Phillies a couple of years ago, they just needed to get in, see it go through, and then everything was sort of smooth sailing for them in the postseason, thanks to Creed as well. Always got to shout out Creed.
Yeah.
Texas. But is there any surprise team? Because I don't know if Texas is going to be any good. There's some other teams that have maybe their expectations have been high, and they haven't been able to quite reach them. There is one team I like to be a bit of a surprise, and I hate to say surprise, but just I think finally fully realized their expectations. But to you, when I say surprise team in the American League, what comes to mind?
Surprise team, American League. The problem is the teams that you think to be surprised, they just play in very tough divisions. They play in the East and the West.
The American League is completely different than the NL. It's tough. It's really tough.
It's really tough. So I think for me, I know this probably is like a trendy pick, but I think the Royals. I think a lot of people are
nice. I have been hearing a lot of that. Yeah,
a lot of people are buying that Royal stock, and you kind of seen this offseason like they'll make a priority and getting the pitching. Not nothing crazy, right? Not nothing spending millions of dollars on top of millions of dollars to get pitching, but they add, I think, Michael Wacha. They add, Seth Lugo. Again, not guys that are going to wow you, but guys.
Such a bunch of underrated moves, right? Just under the radar, perfect moves for a team like that. Yeah.
Much better than rolling out, the Chris Bubiks of the world and the Jordan Lyles of the world.
No more Jordan Lyle. No more Jordan Lyles, please.
Hey, he did though. Like I think he had 3 straight home runs in that one spring training game. Did
spring.
He? Yes, he did.
I loved betting against Jordan Lyles.
Me too. Big Lyles Day was amazing, but I think it's the Royals. I think a lot of people are excited about them. Cole Reagans has been like this trendy Cy Young pick, and I like it. I think if that's where you want to go, I mean, cool, because what we saw last year is just can he do it for a bigger sample size? Then offensively, everybody likes Bobby Witt Jr. and what Bobby Witt Jr.
Love Bobby Witt Jr. Yeah,
and hey, you just look at what they have out there on that team. Like, there's a lot of players that I think that the casual baseball fan doesn't know about. But I think if they get out to a good start, especially in that division, that's a very winnable division. Like Cleveland got the pitching, but offensively,
no pop offensively.
No pop offensively.
Yeah. And they have an interesting lineup, Cleveland does, but yeah. The lack of home run power and pop scares me.
And it's the same thing with Minnesota. They have the pitching somewhat, but offensively, can you depend on Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton to stay healthy? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. So Cleveland is one team I'd be somewhat interested in. But the one I was thinking of for surprise, and again, not surprised, but they had a down year last year. I think this year they could fully realize those expectations. But to me, it's the Seattle Mariners. I like the Mariners. I think Julio Rodriguez, I have him as MVP, but I love the pitching. Pitching is very, very good there. So you have this lineup. You have that lineup that could potentially have, this MVP caliber player in Julio Rodriguez, a bunch of pop as well in some other places. Even a guy like J.P. Crawford has made his way into being like a really solid major leaguer. Had an 818 OPS last year. It's a lot of stuff that I love, and it just didn't come together quite enough last year. I think this is the year again, almost like Texas and the Phillies a couple of years ago, where the Mariners just, once they see it go through, once the confidence level goes up and Julio Rodriguez has that full complete year, they maybe sneak into a wild card, get into the postseason. I think that's when things ramp up, and then you start to see and highlight, well, look how good their starting rotation is. Look how good some of these bats are in their lineup that can absolutely mash. Seattle, to me, is one of those teams that I think, because last year kind of burned a lot of people, because I know a lot were on Seattle to have that breakout year. I think it's kind of under the radar that this could be the year that it finally happens. Because again, I think pitching is the reason why it could.
Yeah, man. I mean, anytime you can throw out Castillo, Kirby, Gilbert, and Wu as your top four, like that's much better than rolling out Robbie Ray and Marco Gonzalez.
Poor Robbie Ray. Poor Robbie Ray. But it's so true. And I am in love with that Seattle starting rotation. So Seattle, to me, the surprise team there. I talked about top teams in the National League. The thing is, it's pretty clear. Not just they're the top two teams in the National League. I think Dodgers and Braves are the top two teams in all of baseball. And I think that is very, very clear. The American League, I don't know if it's as clear. We kind of just give give it to Houston because of pedigree and that they've done it before. Baltimore, because they have a bunch of great young players, put 100-win year last year, so we kind of give it to them as well. But is there any other team in the American League? Is it just Houston and Baltimore? And how for sure are we confident that one of those teams are the best team in the American League?
It could be Houston or Baltimore. Everybody loves the Yankees, but again,
I kind of did, but now this
with the Garrett Cole being hurt and things, it kind of
it's the only thing that ruins them every year.
Every year, because now you add, because when you came into the regular season, you're thinking, so you have Soto, and then you have Cole, Stroman, Cortez, and Rodon. Like, yo, this could be the year you finally do it, and then boom, like he gets hurt, so now you're in trouble. I hope, and this is like a weird hope, I hope that the Blue Jays can figure it out, because I just feel like they're that, like just with the Mariners, right? This is the other team that they're just sitting there on the precipice, and they just continue. They'll get into the playoff, then fold. Like last year, they folded. Like the manager takes out Barrios after 4 innings in the playoff game and kind of like deflates, any chance of anything happening. But that's a team with talent, right? You're hoping that Gausman isn't, that he can start, because he's, dealt with some injuries. But you just look at what they have on paper offensively. You have Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Like, you have two of the better younger players.
Not bad.
No, not bad at all. And for a lot of people, they would said Vlad had a down year, even though it was still a pretty good year for most players. So I think he came in better shape and lost some weight. So if he comes back looking like the guy that we saw go head to head with Shohei in a home run race, a couple years back, then the Blue Jays, they might be there. They just got to believe in themselves. Like, you got to believe in yourself. And be consistent. Be consistent. That's the key with them. They're not consistent.
Yeah, I think they got to find that consistency. And again, that's another team. You just get them in. And I think things can really start to happen for them. So when we talk about the top of the league, there's also fun bets sometimes of who has the worst record in the league.
Oh, boy.
I would have to check to see if what that future special would be, if that would be one of these teams. But let me just ask the question, and I'll find the odds as you answer. Who is the worst team in Major League Baseball?
Worst team off the strength, I'm going to go with the A's. I feel like they're just middle in there. Like, they have some talent. Like, Zach Geloff showed up a little bit last year. Asturi Ruiz showed up, but you can't trust their pitching, man. They're if people were out here betting on Luis Medina over 2.5 earned runs, like it was Christmas, like him and Ken Waldichuk, like they're just gas cans, like you're just waiting for them to blow up. So I say the A's just because it's more so the talent. Like, they just don't have the talent. Like, it's getting there. Like, you can see the young players, but for some reason it's not clicking. But they're gonna be another team down there with the A's this year.
Yeah, it's just a franchise that seems in turmoil. And I know Cincinnati was able to kind of pull themselves out of it, because before last year, I think it was last year, it started out with the owner saying, well, if you don't like it, don't buy tickets and stuff. It's like the Reds were kind of this organization that nobody really thought was doing anything, not good. And then everything started to really click for them. Oakland, it's just getting worse. There's this looming threat of Vegas hanging over that franchise. There's not a lot of fanfare. The ballpark stinks. It is an awful ballpark. It's old. It's outdated. It's disgusting. And the Moneyball thing is great, but like the Moneyball thing's not going to work all the time. And also, teams are doing exactly what the Moneyball thing was all those years ago. You can only get lucky so much with all these players that they've been able to over the years, and really the past 5 to 7 years and past decade. that have been very good, those guys walk away, you don't pay their contracts, and you're left having to replenish that farm system over and over again. And it just seems like it's not working right now. It's a bad organization. It's an organization that, again, going through a lot of turmoil, the looming threat of Vegas. The vibes just don't feel good at all whatsoever in Oakland. And if there's any inkling of a player getting some kind of good value at the trade deadline, they're going to trade them as fast as they possibly can. So it can only get worse after the trade deadline for Oakland. Yeah, I'm just it's a shame to see, because the A's were a fun team at some point. And did have some really fun players, and they just let them all walk away. And it's really a shame to see something like that. So yeah, I think you're right with that. For sure.
Yeah, if the A's are the White Sox are going to be down there too.
Yeah, White Sox. Hello. A lot of promise, and then that didn't work out at all.
Yeah, they're going to be down there too, because that could be a team, like we say, that could move guys in the trade deadline.
Yeah, they're selling a bunch.
If Eloy stay healthy, that's an easy guy to move, right? If Moncada plays well, he's going to get moved. Now, do they move Luis Robert? That would be the bigger question. Now, if you move him, then you're completely selling, every. And
I think it could happen. Like, I think it's going to be very close to that at the deadline.
Very.
All right. So, last baseball question that we got to move on to: spring football. By the way, spring football, which is crazy. So, real quick with the last question: who is your AL, NL champ, and World Series winner?
AL, NL champ. NL champ. NL champ.
It's the Braves.
NL champs.
It's the Braves.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to be that voice in your head that whispered in your head.
It
like,
is.
You
it
have
is
to pick the Braves. You have to pick the Braves.
You have to pick the Braves. I feel like eventually that curse is going to get broken, where the Phillies stop just smoking them in the NLDS, and they're going.
Which is the craziest curse to have. The Phillies, the team that couldn't make a playoffs for a decade, is the one that is now preventing you from having any playoff success the last 2 years. That's
preventing you from getting to the World Series multiple years now. So yeah. I lean with we'll go with the Braves, and then in the American League, I don't know. It's
I had the Yankees, but I think I'm backtracking on that now.
Yeah, because you want to go Yankees, you want to go to Orioles if they grow up, continue to grow up. You want to go with Houston because you said based off of pedigree, but again, can they continue to go with it? You know what? Let's go with the Mariners. Let's go with the Mariners.
Yeah,
let's go.
I think that's what I'm going to change my pick to now. I think it's going to be the Mariners.
Let's go with the Mariners. Everything that you laid out earlier about what they have, and even and the bullpen, what they have the pieces to do it. Like it's just like you said, getting over that hump and doing it. In the American League, like we just kind of went through, just now, it's kind of wide open where it's anybody's game, and they're waiting for somebody to take it. It's not like a National League where we know 1, 2, 3. In American League, they're waiting for somebody to come and just say, "Hey, I'm the number one team, so why not? Can it be Seattle?"
Yeah. Again, once that pitching staff gets into the playoffs, I think it's going to play very, very well for Seattle. So yeah, I'm a big Mariners fan heading into the season. But we also have a new season starting up, not just baseball, and we do have Sweet 16, Elite 8. But something I am so looking forward to is actually spring football. I haven't done as much research heading into this year. I can't wait to watch it, though. I can't wait to bet it. I love the XFL when it first came back. Unfortunately, COVID had fell through. Then USFL was good to see back. But the merging of it seems like a really good thing. It seems like now maybe there could be a more stable spring football league now that they have merged together into one. This could feel like finally now a stable franchise or an organization that can consistently give us spring football every single year. And I think there is at least some kind of market for it. But heading into the spring football year, your thoughts on just the merger? Are we heading into a time where spring football now does seem like it's getting a stable foundation to finally build upon?
I definitely think so. I think having obviously we had the XFL in 2020, and I think I just listened to an interview with Russ Brandon back in 2020 saying like the only reason why the XFL was successful in 2020, like if it wasn't for the pandemic, like it probably would have still, that iteration probably would have still been around, and we saw how that kind of like opened up people's eyes because we kind of saw, guys becoming household names, right? The Jordan Teamus of the world,
Yeah, I loved
PJ
watching Jordan
Walker,
Teamu, yeah.
PJ Walker and Cam Phillips, what they able to do in Houston, like
with June Jones, I remember that.
Right.
So
and people were tuning in like, yo, like, what is this? Like, how are these guys
It was a lot of fun to watch that offense and June Jones with PJ Walker. It was a lot of fun.
And when you're sitting there wondering to yourself, like, how are these guys not in the league? And now we got 2 years of USFL in, which I think that was huge, right? To show consistency and guys getting chances, getting opportunities, becoming household names and having that stability in the XFL last year. Like you said, now everybody's in one, and we kind of have the same teams, the same head coaches for the most part, same players. So now everybody that's watched, the USFL the last 2 years and the XFL last year, you kind of have an idea of like, okay, I know player A is here, player B is here. Like I'm already familiar. So now I'm not kind of thrown in woodworks. Like, what is this like brand of football? Now we're playing all by the same rules. We have the best of the USFL and the best of the XFL. And you hope that, this year goes well and that guys get opportunities in the league, in the NFL, CFL, wherever.
I love seeing that. I still love seeing that. It's great.
It's great because a lot of these guys, you can't get tape. You can't get opportunities by sitting at home. Like or even playing on a practice squad. Like, and that's no disrespect to guys on practice squad. Like, you're on practice squad for a reason because you're a good player and teams don't want to let you go to.
But it is hard to get tape. It is hard for somebody to see what you do. It's almost a team that has to just go blind faith of maybe a preseason game they saw.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly. So I'm excited for it. And you hope that, like I said, you hope this year goes well and that maybe we're looking, at expansion next year and they add a couple more teams. So
Philadelphia, give me Philadelphia back.
Hey, I want the Stars back. I want it back. I want them back.
Yeah, I want them back, and I want them playing in Philly. I want that.
Yeah.
Why did that have to go away? Come on, please give that to me. So right now I'm seeing on DraftKings, seeing Birmingham 3-1, St. Louis plus 350, DC Defenders plus 380, Arlington Renegades plus 475. Then Houston Roughnecks plus 650, and then I'll just go Memphis Showboats 8-1, and then Michigan 13-1, San Antonio 14-1. Birmingham is the favorite. Birmingham has a stacked quarterback room. I mean, stacked to the gills with really good quarterback play. I know we don't know much about Matt Corral, but I think Matt Corral can play. And in the NFL, you just never got his opportunity. Not to say he would have been a starter, but I think he would have been a backup somewhere. And a lot of things happened, off the field with him and sort of some things that kind of led him not to get a shot in the NFL. But here comes him in the Birmingham Stallions. You already have Davis there, who's been a proven spring football quarterback. Who is, in your mind, going to start in that quarterback room, and what can we expect? Is Birmingham the best team in the UFL?
I mean, hey, when you talk about a team that has consistency and the same guys, leading the charge, Skip Holtz and their GM Zach Potter, like that's a machine.
I love Skip Holtz too. Go Pirates! He used to be an ECU coach.
Hey, there you go. Like the dude is a machine. Like I think they're almost looked at as the gold standard of like spring football because these guys can just go out and get guys to come and play and say, hey, you come here, like you're going to ball out and you're going to show something. So I think that's what we're going to see. It's going to be interesting what they do at quarterback because there is no more Alex Magoo, who had just a ridiculous year, and he's been able to translate that to stick on the NFL roster, which I think is another feather in the cap of spring football.
Yes,
like,
it is.
Even though he didn't start or even be a QB2, the fact that he was able to stay in Green Bay as that third guy and not get jumped back and forth to practice squad, that's a good sign. I'm going to lean Corral. I think Corral could get the start there just because we already know what Jamar Smith is. And I feel like if things were to go south, Skip Holtz wouldn't feel pressure to go like, all right, I know I have somebody in the option in Jamar Smith to kind of go and throw him out there if, things were to go south for the Stallions. But it's so hard to think that because they're so loaded. CJ Marable, Jay Sternberger. I mean, Mark Gilbert, who was, an outstanding DB with the Maulers. Now he's over there in Birmingham. I mean, Amari Rogers, Deion Kane, like so many guys, like they're like almost like a 33rd NFL team with some of the talent that they have. So they're really good.
Yeah, they are fantastic. Who's the team that can compete with them? Is it the Battle Hawks, or are we looking at Defenders or the Arlington Renegades or some other team? What team do you think can compete, do you think, with Birmingham?
I know a lot of people think that a lot of people think that the defenders can compete with them just because Greg Williams and his style of defense, like those guys get after it. Like
Yeah.
Greg Williams, like if anybody watched the XFL last year, Greg Williams was like throwing the house at everybody and just playing physical, fast paced, football. And for them, it's just going to be, you have Te'amu back. I think they have a very underrated quarterback from too. I think DeAndre Francois, didn't have
Yeah,
the
Francois, nice.
he didn't have the best of experience in Orlando. That was just a very tough situation because they weren't a great football team in the least. But you have him, you have Jalen McClendon, who really showed well with the Vipers late last season, underrated quarterback room. The question for the defenders is just going to be, what are you going to get at running back with no Abram Smith this year because he's hurt? And then receiver, they've had some guys go to the NFL, some guys retiring. So you're trying to figure out like who's going to be that playmaker because they have kind of everything else. So defenders is a team obviously everybody's going to be watching out for. And I would say, you know what, we'll go with the Battlehawks. I think the Battlehawks, because they feel like a team last year, they had a lot of close wins and then they had a lot of close losses. And it was just like, if you just do one or two things better or like play better in the fourth and don't mess it up, like you could have there. And they are another team, you have the same quarterback and head coach, Anthony Beck. AJ McCarron comes back for a second year. You have, Hakeem Butler, who was outstanding last year. Like, dude balled out. Running back's a little bit questionable because I think they thought they were going to have Max Borghi there, out of Stanford in that backfield, but I think he retired, I think. So now they're going to be probably leaning on Wayne Gallman, another former NFL guy. So it's going to be interesting to see
Wayne
if
Gallman,
he can.
nice.
It's going to be interesting to see if he can bounce back there. And then Jerome Cap, I know everybody remember from the Hard Knocks with the Jets. He's on that roster. So they got a lot of guys offensively, defensively. So I would say those two teams right now, I think, are what people are going to be hoping that they're going to be gunning from. You have the runner-up in the XFL and then the other team in the XFL in St. Louis that everybody thought should have gotten to the playoffs, and they didn't because of the whole tiebreaker points thing. So those two teams, I think, for sure are going to try to be competing with.
I cannot wait.
Falcons.
I cannot wait to talk more spring football with you because your knowledge of just the depth chart of these teams is amazing. I love spring football, and I love those that'll grind out spring football, grind it for bets, and have a lot of fun with it. It's what makes spring football fun to me. Jovan, that is awesome, and I'm definitely going to talk some more spring football. Maybe I'm going to bet some spring football with you. You know what? We'll do that. We'll lead the charge for spring football betting. We'll have a lot of fun doing it. Where can they find your stuff? Where can they find your bets? I know you're doing a few things these days. You're doing awesome work as always. Again, they can follow you at Jovan10 on Twitter, but where can they find some of your work?
Yeah, no, for sure. Appreciate you having me. Like you say, yeah, spring football should be fun. Like we didn't even touch the surface of everything.
I know.
We didn't talk about
Holton Ahlers. For it.
We didn't talk about Holton Ahlers in Arlington.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that. So yeah, so people can like you said, follow me on Twitter. Check out TotalSportsLive.com, Total Sports Live podcast, FTN Bets as well. I'm over there. And also
you and all these other great people, FTN Bets.
Yeah,
what a roster that is.
It's loaded, man. Just gas over there. So FTN Bets, and then also over at Fansided, where I'm a associate editor, helping to lead their local sites over there. So Section 215, Empire Writes Back, all their city local sites. I'm over there helping run and create content for. So those are all the places that you can find me. And then obviously Twitter, where I'll be tweeting pics and stuff and all the random things that I find across sports books, because that's fun.
Love it. Jovan, thanks for coming on, man. We're going to definitely do this again. You're going to be a line change guest. We're going to break down some spring football this year. I love it. But yeah, you do great work. Been meaning to get you on. One of the reasons, again, I started this pod was because there are a few people I certainly wanted to talk to, and I've seen your stuff everywhere, and I definitely wanted to get you on the pod. So glad you came on. Appreciate you for coming on the line change.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And yeah, everybody enjoy the first weekend of spring football and opening weekend baseball. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be fun.
Thanks again to Jovan Alford for coming on the program. Again, follow him at Jovan10, Jovan 10. I talked to him a little bit after the show, and yeah, the guy just was barely scratching the surface of spring football, and I can't wait. I bet spring football a lot in 2020, and I actually had the Roughnecks. I had them when June Jones was there with PJ Walker. So I love spring football. I get very into it. I love football in general. I think it is really cool that there's a spring football league and a chance to see these guys and college players again playing and maybe revitalizing careers that they once had in the NFL or maybe spark a career to get into the NFL. I think it's always great when that happens. And I am very much supportive of something like that. So I certainly can't wait to start getting into the trenches with UFL and doing it with Jovan, who's going to be on the program again for sure. So no bets for today's show. We are kind of waiting for what next show we'll get into some of the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 bets. But I do have a movie review. Roadhouse, the remake, 2024. And I'll tell you what, there is not much to say about this movie. This script was all over the place. There were multiple love interests, it was looking like, for Jake Gyllenhaal that never really materialized except for one into something. But it was so awkward. It was so fast. It was weird. But it's a microcosm of what the movie was. It was all over the damn place. You never really got to settle into Roadhouse, the bar. You never really got to settle into the world. It was a very standard kind of setting for the Keys area in this Florida town, and then the very standard, well, there's somebody that wants to take him out. It was nothing. And the hope that you would get, and what kind of I think made Roadhouse the original, I didn't watch it, but it seems like the original so much into a cult classic, was the cheesy B-side stuff. And I don't know if action movies really have that now. I don't know if there's a lot of movies that can capture that B style a film from the 80s and the early 90s. This one doesn't capture that. Jake Gyllenhaal is a good candidate for it, and he gives a bit of a weird performance, but it's too much of an uncharismatic character that Jake Gyllenhaal plays, and then obviously turns into this ruthless kind of guy towards the end. It just doesn't work. You want a little bit more cheese. You want the cheesy one-liners. You want something crazy, and you get a bit of that Gyllenhaal at the end, but not enough during the most of the story, as he's a very subdued, not so charming, and just mellowed out, play it cool guy. It doesn't really work in this one. And I don't think that's what really the original one was loved for. If you want action too, the action scenes I didn't think were the best. The fight scenes were a little odd. It was very tough to watch some of the fight scenes at times, shaky cameras, very WWE looking sometimes. If you ever watched wrestling and the shaky cameras when there's strikes, that's what it was. It was very nauseous at times. The only thing that looked kind of good, it kind of bamboozles you in the beginning. There's some really great camera shots and great lighting. And there was some things early on that, okay, this looks the part of a decent movie. But then the script and everything falls apart. The acting falls apart. And it was bad. And then Conor McGregor shows up on the screen, maybe about halfway through, a little bit more than halfway through. And it becomes an absolute nightmare of a train wreck every single time that guy shows up on screen. That's when the movie, to me, really, if it had any legs to stand on, if there was something there it was building, it just throws in Conor McGregor, becomes a cheap, cheesy, dumb, not even cheesy, just a cheap, dumb Netflix movie that goes, okay, well, we got Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor was awful in it. I guess you could say he was himself, but it was nauseating to watch. It was unbearable to watch his performance. And his showing up into that and made the movie a lot worse than it was. I gave Roadhouse a 1.5 stars on Letterboxd. It is not my worst movie of the year because, again, I think it started off with some decent things. And maybe I'm wrong in this. Maybe I did like Madam Web more than Roadhouse because I really have nothing great to say other than there were a couple of really cool shots in the movie early on and some interesting things that they did do with camera work in Roadhouse. Madam Web, I did like a little bit more than that because I thought Dakota Johnson's performance fit that very bad B-side Marvel comic movie, and I thought Dakota Johnson's performance was absolutely perfect for what the script she was given. This was a little bit different. I don't know. Maybe I should knock it down a bit more. I didn't like it almost at all. Nothing really worked in it. Again, for some camera work stuff. And Jake Gyllenhaal, sort of at the end, when he does this kind of ruthless turn, becomes a little bit more interesting on screen. But other than that, it feels like you got Gyllenhaal for a reason. And he's just trying to play this cool UFC fighter that just wants to settle in a remote town and just help out this bar that wants to stay open in Roadhouse. That could be a little bit rough, but the fights will be less if Dalton, which is Jake Gyllenhaal's character, can help intimidate everybody into not fighting. It doesn't work. It's, again, all over the place. The script stinks. So no recommendation to me for Roadhouse. I will not be recommending that whatsoever. I will recommend, though, checking out Dune 2. I think the last time I did mention I did see it in IMAX, but that's still the movie to me that is buzzing. Going to be watching some more movies this week that I'll get to hopefully on the pod on the next show. But yeah, Roadhouse. I know everybody's looking forward to that. It's a no-go for me. I would say I do not recommend that whatsoever. Skip it. Everybody's going to forget there was a Roadhouse remake in the very near future. That is it for the line change, though. Thanks again to Jovan. Follow him at Jovan10. You can check out the line change. Search up on the Apple podcast. Search up the line change with John Jansen. There's a few other shows that have the line change, but the line change with John Jansen, and it'll show up. The line change presented by the Cut sports betting app. Cut was on fire during the tournament. We had a ton of fun, and Brace and I talked about it on the Daily Ticket. It is a lot of fun going peer to peer. It was just fun to go, hey, somebody want to bet, somebody want to bet Gonzaga? Or put a bet on that Gonzaga game, or put a bet on whatever game it is. It was just really fun to talk back and forth in the games, what you like. And if somebody likes something different than you, then go, hey, you want to bet it? Let's go ahead, put some money on it on the Cut sports betting app. And there are still public plays that you can look at if somebody already putting a bet on a play and you accepting that offer, accepting that bet on the other side of it. It's just really fun to go around, scroll through what people are betting. And if you can find sort of an edge there, if you can find something you like, find something that maybe somebody has a bet on, but you think the opposite's going to happen. It's a ton of fun to really play that market instead of just looking at the sports book going, okay, there's a team is a 3.5 point favorite. Do I bet the favorite, underdog? This is finding some really interesting bets with either people that or in the public going against somebody. It's a lot of fun to kind of play that and think of it in a different way. I compared it to playing against a computer, and Madden is fun, but it's not as fun as going head to head with somebody and playing online in Madden. That's what it feels like with Cut, that you end up winning against somebody, losing against somebody. You're not just losing against the almighty book or this like giant entity that you're betting against. You're betting against someone, and it makes for a lot of more entertainment to me, and it's a lot more fun, especially when you're betting your friend, which we were doing a lot of. I did not win any bets over the weekend against anyone on the Cut app, so I got some work to do for this Sweet 16 and Elite 8. But yes, line change presented by Cut. Download it. As you can see there on the screen, KUTT. Search it up, KUTT.com, cut.com. You can download it. Also, they have a desktop version, but go search up KUTT wherever you get your apps and download the app. Start playing now. Use the promo code GAMBLER. I think it's called a referral code. So use the referral code GAMBLER when you sign up. And then also join Fox Sports The Gambler, our group chat. It's public. Just look it up. Join us, have some fun, and start posting some bets there. If you want to post some bets, have some fun with us, post bets, and we'll be betting with you all throughout the tournament and throughout the Major League Baseball season, and maybe some UFL bets on the Cut app as well. But the line change presented by the Cut sports betting app. That's it. We'll be back next time here for the line change.